It's like a
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome in. Can everybody hear me, see me? Everybody has their cameras
yes.
off. That's okay. That's okay. This is a fun place where you don't have to turn on your camera, but you are very welcome to turn on your camera and definitely unmute yourselves because I like this to be kind of interactive and a place where we're creating and developing community. So, welcome to the next edition of Drink with Your Shrink. We are in 2025, June. So now we have done over a full year of Drink with Your Shrink. We meet the first Monday of every month. That just seems to work better for most people. I get a lot of feedback on Drink with Your Shrink, and every time I think, oh, I should stop, this isn't helpful, nobody really likes this, or it's kind of a waste of time, then somebody reaches out and they're so kind and they're so encouraging and they let me know how much this means to them. And I'm like, okay, well, we got to keep going then. So let's go over some housekeeping things before we jump in and get started. You may see someone in here that you know, and that's okay. What we discuss in here stays in here. We're going to respect the confidentiality of others, just like we want them to respect our confidentiality. We are not here to judge other people. We're here, like I said, to form a sense of community. And this is not a place to mute yourselves unless you have a lot of background noise or you want to talk to other people in your room. I really like it when we all interact with one another and we engage and we share ideas about what's working for you and what's not working. So, if you're not comfortable turning on your camera, you certainly do not have to. If you want to put a question in the chat box, you can do that as well. I have some people helping me keep an eye on that. So if your question gets missed, just post it again, raise your hand, interrupt me, make sure you get our attention because we do want to get to any questions that we have. And here is my disclaimer. I say it every time. It goes into every email that I send out. My attorney says that I have to, so here goes. If you are drinking alcohol, please drink responsibly. No one affiliated with Drink with Your Shrink is responsible for anything that you do during or after tonight's event as a result of drinking alcohol. So please make sure that you understand that I am not responsible for anything that you do while drinking alcohol tonight or after tonight's event, or even if it has nothing to do with alcohol, I'm not responsible for what you do. So just to let you know, I'm normally drinking water, but tonight I'm drinking lemonade. I went to the Loop earlier for lunch, and I have a little bit of lemonade left that's not watered down, surprisingly. So I'm having lemonade tonight while we talk. So we know that we're here to discuss very serious topics, but we also want to have fun. We want to be relaxed. We want to enjoy ourselves. So, why did I start Drink with Your Shrink? It's a place where meaningful conversations and mental wellness come together, maybe over a refreshing beverage, whether it's coffee, tea, lemonade, or something stronger. This community is here to embrace the therapeutic power of conversation. So, we're going to raise our glasses to self care, positivity, and the journey to a more balanced life. So, let's jump in and get started. Tonight's topic is, in my opinion, extremely controversial. And I think most of us can recognize that we have had to deal with someone with narcissistic traits. Now, the actual diagnosis of being narcissistic and having a full clinical diagnosis is very rare, which it kind of is contradicted by the number of people that I talk to on a regular basis saying, I live with someone that's narcissistic or I deal with someone that's narcissistic. The clinical definition, the clinical language, and the actual diagnoses is very minimal. And so we're going to talk about why that is and how that happens. We're going to talk about what creates a narcissist, how to know if you're with one. We're going to look at some behaviors, and then what to do, how to arm yourself, how to equip yourself, how to better take care of yourself, because the narcissist is not going to take care of you. We know that, right? So you will hear me naturally refer to a narcissistic person or a person with narcissistic traits as him or he, because clinical research shows us the majority of narcissists are males. Now, that is not 100%. Of course, women can be narcissists, and I know of a handful of women in my own life that are narcissists. So it definitely can be a woman, but just out of habit and consistency, you probably will hear me refer to a narcissist as a he or a him. But I do want to make that distinction that it can also very easily be a woman. So if we look at the DSM-5, which is the Diagnostic Statistic Manual of Mental Health Disorders. Oh, we already have some. I'm looking at the chat. Okay, so no questions just yet. So if we look at the criteria of narcissistic personality disorder in the DSM, it is a pervasive pattern of a lot of different behaviors. It's not just somebody being an asshole. Okay. It's not just somebody disagreeing with you. It's not just someone not giving you your way or listening to you. It's several different behaviors that we're going to talk about. There's 7 in total. And of course, under each behavior or category, you can see and begin to recognize examples of some of these things. So the first one is grandiosity. This person has an exaggerated sense of self-importance. They want to be recognized as superior, whether or not they've even achieved anything. They want to be acknowledged and praised and valued way beyond anything that they've achieved with work or school or influence or anything else. They just have this exaggerated sense of self-importance. The second behavior or characteristics is fantasy. They're very preoccupied with fantasies of unlimited success or power or brilliance or beauty or this ideal love. So the second behavior is fantasy. The third is need for admiration. They have this excessive need for admiration, and they want everyone around them to admire them and praise them. And they even have this sense of entitlement that they deserve all of this admiration. Yet, behavior number 4, they have a lack of empathy. They're unwilling and unable to recognize or even identify the feelings and needs of those around them. The 5th behavior is interpersonal exploitation. They take advantage of others to achieve their own ends, to get whatever it is that they need. They'll take advantage of other people and with no remorse whatsoever. So Jason is typing all of these out into the chat. So thank you, Jason, for doing that. Michelle says she has a very narcissistic boss and it's making her life hell right now. How do I handle that and still keep my job? Great question, Michelle. We're going to talk about that at the end. What can you do when you're dealing with someone with some of these traits? So I said interpersonal exploitation. So they will kind of ride someone else's coattails and just take advantage of someone else to get to their own goals and choices that they're trying to make, regardless of what it does to someone else. Again, no remorse. Characteristic number 6 or behavior number 6, they're envious of other people, and or they also believe that people are envious of them. So that can be either or. They're envious of people, or they believe that others are envious of them. And then the 7th behavior, and this one is something that we've all heard and seen a lot about, is that arrogance. They display arrogant and haughty behaviors or attitudes. So there's the 7 behaviors, 7 characteristics, and of course, we'll see other behaviors and kind of within each of these characteristics. But in order to have the full diagnosis, these traits have to be persistent, pervasive across a range of situations. They have to cause significant distress, impairment in social, occupation, work, or other important areas of functioning. It's very important to note that getting a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder, NPD, it requires a very comprehensive assessment by a qualified mental health professional. So we got a lot of people going, oh, that's a narcissist. That's a narcissist. I know that's a narcissist. They probably very, very likely have narcissistic traits and characteristics and behaviors, but they might not actually have full blown personality disorder. So, despite its prominence in discussions, clinical narcissism, as diagnosed by a mental health clinician, is relatively rare in the general population, depending on who you ask. Research shows that it's about anywhere from 1 to 6% of the population. And it's a lot of people, but 1 to 6% is not a lot of people when you think about the people that you know. 6% of the people that you know, up to 6% of the people that you know could be diagnosed with this. Other people say that it's 1 in 6 people have narcissistic personality disorder, and I don't know the math on what 1 in 6 would be, but I think that's more than 6%. So anyway, but let's talk about what creates a narcissistic person. It's a common misconception that they're born this way. Narcs are not born, they are created. They are typically created in their early childhood experiences, especially during those formative years. So when they're little, all of their physical needs get met. Let's sign little Johnny up for baseball. Let's sign little Johnny up for soccer and football, and let's give him all the physical, material things that he could possibly want or need, maybe even more. But little Johnny's emotional needs were not met. Parents were not emotionally available to the child, and that is what starts and influences the development of narcissistic traits. So if you know someone that you feel like they have a lot of these traits, it's very, very helpful if you can know a little bit about their childhood and know what kind of childhood they had. And that'll give you another clue as to how far into this personality disorder you might be looking. So, children who are consistently overvalued, constantly praised, and told how special and wonderful they are can develop a distorted sense of self importance and low empathy for other people. Neglected children can also get to this point because their emotional and mental health needs are not being met. So we've got an overvaluation in some areas and then neglect in the other areas. So they're neglected emotionally and mentally, but they're overvalued in material and physical possessions. Another factor may be inconsistent or unpredictable parenting styles for little Johnny, where maybe they get a lot of praise at times, maybe they get a lot of criticism at times. And the praise and the criticism are all mixed in, or maybe it's based on unrealistic expectations. And that can lead little Johnny to be confused about his self-worth. It can confuse him on how does he validate his self-soothing behaviors? Like, what does he need to do to feel better about himself? Children may also model narcissistic behaviors if they witness similar traits in their caregivers or their significant others or their parents, primary caregivers. They'll see these behaviors as normal or effective or just it's called person in environment high. So we have these environmental influences and we just kind of model what we see from our own parents And sometimes it's healthy, and sometimes, in the case of little Johnny or narcissistic personality traits, it's not so healthy. Another factor that is important to look at is environmental influences, especially culture. There's a lot of cultures where the man is 100% in charge of the family. He is not to be questioned, he is not to be challenged in any way. Everything he says goes, regardless of what it does to the family or if it's really beneficial for everyone in the family. So, cultures, religions that emphasize that the male is the head of the household and the woman is lesser than, then that is another example of how narcs can be created, because again, they're not born. No baby is born as a narcissist. They are created through their childhood. And there's a few other factors that we could look at, but I want to just do more of a broad overview for tonight versus getting into the nitty-gritty details, because this is honestly something we could talk about like all day, every day for a week and barely scratch the surface. There's so much pathology that goes into this. So let's talk about some very specific traits or examples of things that people with narcissistic tendencies tend to do. And if you have any examples, just jump in and interrupt me or raise your hand or post something in the chat, because this is where we start to engage with one another. So, a narcissist or someone with these traits, it will drive them crazy if you don't immediately get over the hurt that they caused you. Or if you bring it up and you want to hold that person accountable, he'll believe, just let it go, just move on. You should be over that by now. But if someone hurts the narcissist, he's not going to get over it. He's going to talk about it over and over. Maybe years later, he's going to still be bringing it up. He's going to be that perpetual victim because he's been so deeply hurt. So we see a lot of double standards with the narcissist. They live a double life. They have one set of rules and regulations for themselves, and they have a completely different set of rules and regulations for everyone around them. And I think we all know a lot of people that live this double life or have this double standard about them. A narcissist wants to be able to reject you, to make you feel small and unimportant, and that helps them to feel powerful and validated by making you feel excluded or unwanted. And so it's this cycle, it's this vicious cycle to reject you, push you down, make you feel smaller, unimportant. It somehow in their mind builds them up, puts them on that pedestal where they get all the praise. A lot of times, people with narcissistic traits will try to ruin special occasions, especially if it's an occasion where the focus is not all on them, where they're not the center of attention. It's somebody else's anniversary or somebody else's birthday or somebody else's special event, graduation or whatnot. And then they're going to ruin it in some way or ruin a situation leading up to it. Maybe pick a fight right as you're walking into the event. So you're upset during it and you can't fully engage in the special occasion. Something so simple, but here's another example of narcissism. They will walk ahead of you. They won't walk with you, they'll walk ahead of you. Years ago, I worked with a blended family of 5 kids. The youngest kids at the time were 6 and 8. There were 2 6-year-olds, 1 8-year-old. The other 2 kids were like 11 and 13 or so. They were early adolescents. The family is traveling through one of the busiest airports in the country. The narc, in this case, the man, the dad, the stepdad, the husband, he walks way ahead of the mom. Mom's got these 5 kids, 2 6-year-olds, an 8-year-old, 11-year-old, 13-year-old. Dad's dad, husband, stepdad, he's not carrying anything. He's not looking for signs of where they're going. He just takes off, stays ahead of the entire family, gets on the train to the next gate by himself, never once looks back to make sure that his wife and his 2 biological children and her 3 children are actually making it through the airport to get to their next gate. It's a very simple example of what someone with narcissism will do. Another trait is being jealous of their own children. They'll be jealous of their own children, their own spouses, any family member that has something that they perceive of value that they think should be theirs, whether they earned it or not important. Narcissistic people will tend to act like a toddler and play the victim in the chaos that they've created. And I see this a lot. And let me say this, a lot of people are in therapy because of the people around them in their lives that won't go to therapy and get the help that they need. So a lot of people are in therapy learning how to deal with these kind of situations and people with these behaviors, tendencies, traits, characteristics. So a narcissistic person will act like a toddler and play a victim, yet they don't recognize or can't admit that this is the chaos that they actually created themselves. Narcissistic people hate being called out for something they absolutely 100% did do. They're not angry because they're innocent. They're angry because they got called out. They yell, they shift the blame, they get defensive. They don't want to take accountability, so they make you the problem. Narcissists are not looking for compromise. They are looking for control. And I think that sums up narcissism in a very simplistic way. It might not always be accurate. Like just because they do this doesn't necessarily mean, but it is a very good telltale sign. Narcissistic people are not looking for compromise. They are looking for control. They use a tactic called DARVO. This is DARVO. This stands for deny, attack, and reverse the roles of victim and oppressor. They're very good at it. So you bring a situation to someone with narcissistic traits, and you're just like trying to get a resolution, trying to get an apology, trying to get them to take some accountability. Well, a narcissistic person can't do that. What they're going to do is they're going to flip the script. At that point, you are no longer human to them. You're merely this persecutory object to them, and they take you and what you're saying as an attack. And then in their defensiveness and they're denying everything and shifting the blame, they can actually become quite abusive to the people around them because they feel everything is an attack. So they begin to abuse the people around them verbally, emotionally, mentally. So let's just say that you bring up something to a narcissistic person, even something very simple in a mild, calm, linear manner. They'll start to bring up things from your past, things that did or did not even happen, or they'll change the context of what happened in your past, or they'll change the context of what you're trying to talk to them about in the moment. And they do it in such a way that we naturally, as the victim, we take the bait and we start to defend these things, which does what? Makes the original conversation just go by the wayside because there's no accountability for a narcissist. So here's an example of something that happened with someone that shared with me. And I don't necessarily know that this person was a narcissist, but it shows an example. The first person, I believe it was the female, said, "Hey, when you moved my car, you left the keys on the counter, and I really like the keys to be hung up on the key rack. That way I always know where they are. And, I just wanted to point out that you left the keys on the counter and they go on the key rack." Very benign, very mild, not meaning anything by it, just a simple reminder. And immediately this person's response was, "Well, you left the bathroom light on." It's like, in what world does that even correlate? Keys and bathroom lights? Like, so just that inability to take any ownership, any accountability, be like, "Oh crap, you're right. I left the keys on the counter. Sorry about that. Let me grab them and put them back." "Oh, you already did? Okay, thank you. I'll make sure next time I leave them on the key rack." Something that simple goes from that to, well, you left the bathroom light on last week. Well, we're not talking about last week. We're talking about right now. So another buzzword that we hear a lot about is gaslighting. And a lot of times people misuse this word because they don't really know what it means. They just hear it a lot. We hear it all the time. You probably don't go a day without hearing the word gaslight or gaslighting or any form of this word. And just because someone disagrees with you doesn't mean that they're trying to gaslight you. There's a lot more to it than that. Gaslighting is trying to undermine your perception of reality, of memory, and your sanity. So just having a great big argument with someone isn't necessarily argument or gaslighting. Having an argument where you completely disagree over what happened, not necessarily gaslighting. It absolutely can be, but it's not necessarily gaslighting. Gaslighting usually happens very gradually over time, which makes it much more difficult for the victim to recognize this manipulation. Until then, they're so deeply uncertain about their own reality. It's like, wait a minute, I really thought it went this way. I'm starting to question myself. And victims really start to question their own sanity, their own perception, and their own memory of what happened. And here are some ways that gaslighting, some key aspects of gaslighting, and what does gaslighting really look like? So there's the classic denial and contradiction. The person that's gaslighting you, the narcissistic person, they're going to deny the events, the statements. They're going to deny everything. I never said that. That's not what I did. That's not what I said. That's not, excuse me, I got a tickle in my throat. So the gaslighter is going to deny everything. They didn't do it. Everything you're saying is wrong. They cannot even agree on one single aspect of what you're saying. The gaslighter, the narcissistic person, will also twist the facts and manipulate the narrative. So again, the victim ends up doubting their memory, doubting their own understanding of events. And they might say, well, you're remembering it wrong, or that's not how it happened. And then naturally, we know what we remember. So we try to explain it, and we try to remind them and give them a version of events as we remember it. And the victim is never right. It's impossible for that narcissistic person to be like, you know what, you're right. I see where you're coming from, and I screwed up and I shouldn't have done it that way. You're never going to get that from a narcissistic person. A narcissistic person will deliberately withhold information to make the victim doubt their own perceptions or conclusions. You don't need to know about that. That's not important. You don't need to know anything. It's need to know basis, and you don't need to know. A family that I worked with years ago, the husband, the stepdad, the father that I mentioned in the airport, he sold his vehicle. He sold his whatever it was he was driving at the time. He didn't tell his wife. He didn't tell her. It's like until several days later, she said, "Where's your truck? Like, I haven't seen your truck in the driveway. I thought you had parked it on the side of the house. It's not there. Like, where's your vehicle?" He goes, "Oh, I sold it." Okay, like, see, things like that might be important to know, might be a decision to make as a family, or at least as a couple. And so they will deliberately withhold information to keep you feeling like you're not an important part of this union or this situation. I know we're talking a lot about couples, but this can also be employer, employee. This can be friends. This can apply to people in your family, neighbors, coworkers. This can apply to anyone. Just the examples I'm giving are examples that have been shared with me throughout my work. So another thing that people with narcissism will do is They will tell you that what you think is wrong, what you did is wrong, what you feel is wrong, and then they will add other people. Well, everyone else thinks you're wrong too. Well, my friend says you're wrong, or my husband agrees that you're wrong, or my wife also said you're wrong, or my sister said you're also wrong, or my coworker, my supervisor. So they will gather all these other people to kind of pile on with their opinion, whether it's true or not, whether they've even talked about these things with other people is unknown and not important, but they're going to tell you that they have. They're going to say, well, so and so agrees with me, which probably more than likely so and so either doesn't know anything about it or absolutely did not agree. But in the moment, you don't know that. So another symptom of gaslighting, another characteristic of gaslighting is they will minimize and trivialize your feelings, your concerns, your experiences, making you feel like you're very insignificant, make you feel like you're being too sensitive. If you've ever heard something like you're overreacting, why are you making a big deal out of this? This is not a big deal. You're being a baby. You're acting like a child. A lot of times, narcissistic people will actually confess in their accusation. So, as they're accusing you of something, they're actually confessing. They don't realize that because they think they're smarter than everyone else. They're not. Someone that's also gaslighting, and typically we see gaslighting from narcissist people, they will shift the blame onto you. They'll try to make you feel responsible for the problems in the relationship. Things like, well, if you just weren't so insecure, we wouldn't have these issues. Well, if you would just spend more time with me, if you would just hold my hand more, if you would just do what I ask you to do when I ask you to do it, we wouldn't have these issues. Things that, again, to manipulate, to control, because it's not about compromise, it is about control. So, another indicator, people with narcissistic traits, personalities, characteristics, they care more about the perception of strangers or acquaintances than they care about how their own family feels about them. They want to impress people. I knew a guy once who was helping his local Rotary to raise money to send books to every child in his local county. He was heading up the project, he was raising money, doing fundraisers, collecting the books, sending the books, shipping the books, making presentations, the whole 9 yards. The community thought he was doing such a great thing. His own daughter at the time was in the first grade. This man would not sit down and read a single book with her, not one. And if she did read to him, he wouldn't even look away from his computer or his phone to see if she was reading it correctly. She's first grade, she's learning to read. So her assignment was to read to someone every night. He wouldn't even take 5 or 10 minutes to read to his own child. But here he is thinking he's a pillar in the community, doing all this good work to make sure we have a book in every child's hand. Um, you cannot give a narcissistic person any feedback. They don't want it. They don't want to hear it. They don't want feedback, whether it's constructive or not. However, they will happily criticize you and give you a list of your flaws and your faults. And if you ever voluntarily or willingly share any of your shortcomings with a narcissistic person, they're going to use it against you. They are absolutely going to use it against you. The family that I mentioned before, the wife had been severely abused as a child, spent a lot of time in foster care. The dad, the stepdad, the husband, the airport guy, the story I've been telling, he said to her one time, well, it's no wonder your dad treated you the way you did. It's no wonder you were abused your whole childhood. You deserved it. Wow. When you say that to someone who has been abused as a child, who hasn't quite healed and learned that it really wasn't their fault, it just reignites and re-traumatizes and re-hurts that person so much that then they don't have the courage to stand up for themselves. So let's pause here. Let me check Let me check over here at the comments. So Jason has done a great job of just kind of putting everything in the chat. And if you guys want my notes, I'm happy to send the notes out that I put together for tonight. Michelle says significant other? Agree that many others have to be in therapy because of others. Yes. Oh, so agree, not significant other. So agree that many others have to be in therapy because of others' behaviors. Absolutely. I see that every single day that I do therapy, and I do therapy about 6 days a week. And at least one person that I talk to every single day is talking to me because of the people around them that will not talk to a therapist. So let's talk about how to disarm yourself or disarm the situation and put yourself in as good a place as possible. So the number one thing to disarm a narcissist, stop giving them your energy. That is what fuels them. Your energy fuels them. Stop explaining yourself. Stop trying to get them to see your side of it. Stop letting their chaos live in your mind rent-free. You have to protect your peace until you decide if you want to keep them in your life. Whether it's a spouse, a family member, neighbor, coworker, colleague, doesn't matter. You can decide to protect your peace. And you just stop. Stop explaining yourself. Stop trying to let them see your side of it. Stop giving them your energy. You don't win the game by playing better than them because it's impossible. You win by refusing to play the game in the first place. Silence, distance, and zero access to your energy. Now, if this is a spouse that you're living with, if this is an employer or a supervisor, and you have to deal with them on a daily or regular basis, there are some things that you're just going to have to do to make some semblance of peace, but you're doing it for yourself. You're not doing it for them. So what can victims do? There's another acronym called JADE. We talked about DARVO, DARVO, and that's what narcissistic people do. Let's talk about JADE, JADE. Not justify, not argue, not defend, and not explain yourself at all. That takes away your energy from fueling what they need to feel like they're up on that pedestal and that they're getting all that praise. So Michelle said, but if it's your job, what do you do? Some of these techniques will definitely help you, Michelle, in some of this, depending on your job, your field, your career, and the dynamics between you and the supervisor. This is kind of an overview, so might not be specific to your situation, but might give you some help as well. Use tactical empathy. Tactical empathy. And that's something like, it seems like this is really important to you. That makes them feel validated, but you're not necessarily agreeing with them. You don't have to agree with the thing they've said, but you can say, it seems like this is really important to you. So that's tactical empathy. You're validating them, you're not agreeing with them. Never directly challenge their self-image. Anything that challenges their self-image is going to trigger defensiveness in them. So you use how questions to shift the burden. How would you like for us to resolve this? Make them work a little bit for the solutions because you cannot negotiate with their ego. You have to navigate around it. So how would you like for us to resolve this? How can we move forward? How can this get better? How can I help you with this? Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to do those things, but you're at least offering and asking, and how can we resolve this? Because remember, a narcissistic person does not want compromise. They want control. And if you're asking, how would you like for us to resolve this in their mind, you're giving them some control. So again, you're empathetic. It seems like this is really important to you. You're not agreeing, but you're validating. So try these things out and see how they go. On the flip side of that, There might be on your part as the victim resentment, anger, frustration, bitterness. Like, oh my God, I have to have this job. I have to do this. I don't have another job. I don't want to look for another job other than this one person. This job is perfect for me. So you might have your own negative feelings of being around this person and having to deal with this person. And so that's not something you can take to them and say, listen, I'm frustrated with you for this, or I'm upset with you for this. You cannot talk to the narcissistic person about these things. This is when you seek therapy. This is when you talk to a therapist, or you have your support group or your support people in your life. Maybe it's a group, maybe it is your own therapist, maybe it's just your go-to people, the people in your circle that help build you up. And if the people in your circle are not building you up, you get a new circle. And if you need me to be a part of your circle, you let me know. I'll be a part of your circle. Because I've always believed there's more room at the top, and you should grab somebody's hand on the way up as you're headed to the top. Don't step on their head, grab their hand and bring them with you. So that's it. That's all I have put together because I wanted to leave extra time for any conversations or discussion that any of you. Michelle says that's very insightful. Definitely give that a go. Lee said, would love the notes. I will get the notes out. If you're on the mailing list, the email list, if you got the email at 6 o'clock tonight and 7 o'clock last night, you're on the list. So you'll get the notes, and I'll send those out this week. Are there any comments, questions? Anybody want to share maybe a technique, a tool, a tactic that you've used that worked well?
Hi, Tracy, can you hear me? This is Michelle. So I
Michelle?
have a circle of friends at work and they totally build me up and they totally support me and they have my back. And that's what's keeping me going. And with this narcissistic boss that came in like 3 weeks ago, and he wants to change things and he's new and he's like a police sergeant promoted to lieutenant and he wants to make his impact. And I'm finance, so I understand that's a big part of this company. And I'm totally trying to make him happy, but it's really hard. It's really hard. He's demanding a lot of things, and we have a very lean crew. But I have a lot of support behind me, and I have a lot of support in you. And I'm seeing one of your counselors like once every week, so I want to thank you for this and for all this because it's so helpful.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that. I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, especially new people when they come in as a supervisor, they want to make it their own, and then they want to get all the accolades and the praise for creating these programs or doing such a good job or turning something
Yes.
around.
And I've been doing great for like 6 months. And then this guy comes in and he wants to, and he has no clue like about things. And it's just really hard to deal with. So
Yep. So
I've been
you're
going,
going to remember Jade. You're not going to justify, you're not going to argue, you're not going to defend, you're not going to
oh,
explain.
absolutely not. I am totally professional. I'm doing everything that he wants me to do. And, I'm trying to you know,
Yep.
I'm just trying to do good.
Good. Absolutely. Being aware of the situation is definitely the first step, and half the battle is being aware. And knowing what he might do or say to trigger you so that you can already be prepared, and then come at him with that tactical empathy of how can we fix this? How can we move forward?
Right.
How can I help you? Seems like this is
Right.
really important to you. How can I be of
It is
assistance
because
to you?
it's my job and he's so negative and I always try to be positive. And what you were saying about narcissism, so my mom was a narcissist and my ex-husband was a narcissist. So I'm dealing with all that stuff, and then I was doing okay and then I got this great job and then this guy comes in and so it's bringing all this out and it's really hard to deal with.
Yeah, so you've got some lingering things from past relationships that are probably coming to the
Absolutely.
surface as you're dealing
Absolutely.
with this new person. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I'm glad that you are getting some help and that you've got people around you that love you, support you, care about you, and will lift you up and help you navigate this because he may not even last. He may be there a very short time and be booted out for some reason or decide it's not for him. The
Right.
the other thing that I would suggest, and this again, this might be a little controversial, but I'm not your typical therapist. He's coming in, he's trying to be very controlling, he's trying to
Yes.
assert
He's
his
trying to make things
authority.
happen and be right.
So here's what I want you to do. I want you to picture him as a submissive to his wife or his husband, or it doesn't matter who. Picture him as a submissive person and
Okay.
picture him in all of these degrading scenarios where maybe he's like wearing a dog collar and he's being walked, or he's wearing a
Oh my
diaper,
God.
or like something just completely degrading and emasculating to where he is being treated awfully, or I mean he might like it, but like just not something out of in the norm, and start to picture him like that, and that will also help take away his power because you'll see him in a different light. Just picture him like, oh yeah, I bet you were tied up last night and chained to the bed and wearing a dog collar and ropes and chains, and just picture it in your head. Don't say it to him. Just picture in your head, get an image of that, and then you'll start to relate to him very differently.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Tracy.
You're
Wow.
very, very welcome. Thank you for sharing. I so appreciate that. Is there anybody else that wants to share?
Yeah, I actually wanted to say one of the things that you had mentioned as kind of a strategy for responding to a narcissistic personality was not justifying yourself. And I that's something that in the past has been really helpful for me is putting up that wall that's like, nope, I don't have to explain this. I'm not going to try to get your buy-in as to why I'm making this decision. This is it. And that has been extremely effective.
Absolutely, because there's nothing you can say that's going to explain it or make the other person see it from your perspective. They're just going to have more ammunition to then use against you and try to tear you down. So you just quit engaging. You quit giving your energy because that's what fuels them. And if you can go no contact, if it's somebody that you can go no contact with, then you go no contact if it's appropriate. In some cases, it's just not. And like the case of an employer or supervisor or spouse, then you have to find ways to navigate how to deal with them until you can protect your peace, or as you're protecting your peace. Any ideas for topics of next month? If you guys think of anything, you can put it in the chat. You can email me. You can message me anywhere that you have access to me. All right. Oh, thank you, Lee. I'm going to let me make sure I have her email address. Just do a little quick copy and paste. All right. If you have anything that you want to hear about in a future episode, let me know. I will send out these notes to everyone this week. And let's see, what date are we meeting? Next month will be July 7th. Can you believe we are halfway through the year? It's just like flying by. I think age is a little bit like toilet paper. The closer you get to the end, the quicker it goes. And I feel like that's what's happening for 2025. We're just speeding through this year. It was just Christmas last week. So thank you all for joining me and participating. And I'll send out that email later this week. And if nobody else has anything, I'll give it another minute or so. I want to make sure everyone has an opportunity. All right. We'll call it a night. Thank you for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your night. Enjoy your beverage. And I will see you July 7th. All right, everybody have a good night.